Happy to be here on the Grateful Celebrant Facebook page this afternoon. And joining me is the Grateful Celebrant herself, Dinah Liversidge. Dinah, thank you so much for joining us online this afternoon. You know, we really needed to get a little bit of an update about everything that's happening on your side and all the wonderful developments. But before we get into that, I thought it would be a great opportunity today to talk about how you became a celebrant, what drew you to this profession, and how did you get into it?
Thank you, Anel. It's lovely to talk to you today. And do you know, I couldn't believe it when you said to me I'd never shared with you what it was that first got me into this profession. So thank you for asking. I have been with the love of my life since I was a teenager. My husband and I are both 55 this year, so it's almost 40 years. And his dad was the total and absolute opposite of my own father. Mm-hmm. And we absolutely adored each other. And he was very cheeky. He had a very strong, sarcastic sense of humor. I remember the first time I met him. After meeting him, I said to John, I don't think your dad likes me very much. He was quite rude to me. And he said, babe, if he'd been polite, I would have been really worried. So he was a tease. He brought me out of my shell in my early 20s. He was the most incredible dad. So when I became a mother, he was there, making me feel able and confident. When I set up my first business, he encouraged and supported me way more than my own father. And I adored this man. I really, really looked up to him. And when he died, John's mum phoned me and said, I don't want anybody else to do his funeral. I want you to do it. And it didn't honestly even occur to me that I wasn't qualified or prepared or had actually ever been to a service that had not been of my own family's faith. I just said yes, of course.
Yeah.
And I then went away and swore quite a lot and thought, what on earth have I done? But somehow I wrote a service. Mm-hmm. I went and delivered it under really difficult circumstances because he had a family who were estranged, who felt very isolated and hurt. Grief affects all of us in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I was anxious about how they would feel. Mm. And at the funeral itself, on the front row, is my beautiful daughter who's just lost her granddad. Mm. And I watched her as I delivered the ceremony, probably more than anybody else. Mm. And afterwards she said to me, Mum, I'm so glad it was you who did that. Mm. You really helped me today. Mm. And that really stayed with me. And I thought, you know, this job is about that thing I always talk about being and doing, about putting others before self, about being a giver, not a taker. Yeah. As one of my dearest friends, Neil Giller, would say, it's about being a radiator, not a drain. I adore him and I adore that expression.
It's gorgeous. That's absolutely gorgeous.
It just sums it up so perfectly. And I guess it was about a year later that a very dear friend of mine in a foreign country lost her mum. Mm. And we were talking and she sobbed at how appalling and awful the funeral had been. Mm. She said, this person didn't get to know us. It was clear they didn't know Mum. They got her name wrong twice during the service. I mean, to me, that's unforgivable.
Yeah.
And I think that was the moment I thought, you know what? Maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is something I should be exploring. And I started training.
That is absolutely incredible, Dinah. You know, I know a couple of celebrants and they usually come in through the wedding side. It's quite refreshing to hear that the inspiration for this life path came from a completely different, angle. So Dinah, I just wanted to find out a little bit. You've now talked about how you got interested and how you transitioned into this. But tell us a little bit about the role of an independent celebrant. What, for those who are watching this afternoon and let's assume they know nothing about this, how do you explain?
Okay, that's a great question. So an independent celebrant, and the word independent here is very important, and I'll explain a bit more why later. But an independent celebrant is the person who is there to help you mark occasions in your life that you may traditionally have gone to a person of faith, a minister, a rabbi, a priest, somebody who holds a role in your community that traditionally had been faith-based. And more, people are not feeling served by that in the way they were. We are seeking alternatives. We are perhaps having relationships of mixed faith, of no faith. And to be able to create a way of marking that occasion that is authentic and true to you, one of the options available is to work with an independent celebrant. So traditionally, you'll think of us for funerals and for wedding ceremonies. Now, in the UK at the moment, a ceremony carried out, unless it is in Scotland, by a humanist celebrant, celebrants in the UK cannot perform a legally binding marriage ceremony. Most ministers of faith can, not all, but most. Yeah. And then the option you normally have, if you therefore want a minister from a different faith or a celebrant, is you would need to have a registrar carry out the legal part of the service.
Okay.
There's a really big review going on with the Law Commission at the moment that is looking at changing very, very outdated laws. And I'm so glad, because they are very excluding. And the reason it is important that somebody like an independent celebrant be allowed to make a legal marriage is because so many more people would be represented who are not at the moment. And we often talk about the importance of creating a space for that's, a strong bond, a lifetime partnership. We want to encourage it, but the law really discourages huge sections of our society. And that's where an independent celebrant can change that.
Now, Dinah, we've talked about weddings, we've talked about funerals. Tell me a little bit about the other ceremonies that you can mark as an independent celebrant, or the ceremonies that you've been involved in.
Oh, lovely. I've been so lucky. As you know, I live in this incredible place. In fact, that photograph behind me, the screensaver, is just outside our little woodland hut. And that circle is a circle that I created to carry out a hand fasting ceremony. So a hand fasting goes back several people, of course, as you often find, and I do love doing the exploring, but several cultures claim hand fasting as their own. The truth is, a bit like the pyramids, things occur all over the world, and very often they occur simultaneously with no connection. But one of the people who claim hand fasting as a tradition are Celts. And living in Wales, it being a Celtic tradition, it's something I've done and learned about. And it's where you make fast like you would with a ship. That's where the word comes from. So you tie to hold safely together as you would a ship to port. And you use beautiful ribbons or ropes to do that. In ancient times, it is believed that you would be bound together for a year and a day. Now, the actual real meaning of that is one of those gorgeous urban myths. What it actually was that the hand fasting ceremony only meant you were tied for a year and a day, not physically by the ribbons, but for your marriage. You had a year and 1 day together. And during that time, you had to be faithful to each other and respect each other. And at the end of that year and a day, you could either repeat the ceremony or you could part. But I would imagine
tradition.
Isn't that gorgeous? But a year and a day physically tied together, possibly not a good idea.
No, I don't think so either.
No. So why would somebody have a hand fasting ceremony? Well, one of the best and most beautiful reasons that I've been asked to do this for has been to celebrate a renewal of their commitment to each other. Some people would refer to this as a renewal of vows. That is often the case, but this works beautifully for couples who have never chosen to legally marry. So they would not necessarily be renewing vows. What they often say is, we want to talk about our gratitude for each other, or we want to talk about plans and hopes for our future together. And it's a really beautiful thing to do. Vow renewals, another ceremony that doesn't always have to include things like a hand fasting, is a wonderful way to mark a big anniversary. But often also couples decide to do this when they've come through a big challenge. And that can be, recovery from a very serious illness where one has really supported the other. But it can also be, we had a tough couple of years as a couple. And we didn't back down and we didn't quit. And we worked at it together. And we want to celebrate that we're ready to move forward in a new chapter.
And I'm sure this
feel really healing.
And I'm sure most couples after COVID can relate to, we've been through a tough couple of years. So I'm sure you're going to see a spike in those vow renewals.
Yeah.
So Dinah, right. I know you from training and coaching. I know that you've spent a great deal of your career in that space. I know you've mentioned to me that half your career has been spent in that space. Why have you decided to now pivot over and focus more seriously on the celebrant side?
That's a good question. I think it's a couple of really simple things kind of came together. So I noticed, and you'll appreciate this because of your own experience coaching others, I noticed how often I was saying to people, so let's really look at your niche. And people in marketing, people in business ownership talk about this mythical niche all the time, as if it's some holy grail. But very, very few people are ever brave enough to say, I'm going to do that one thing and drop the "and I can also."
Yes.
And I hear people talk themselves out of opportunities all the time by saying, I do that, I'm great at it, I'm brilliant at it. And I also, and suddenly you're thinking, but you told me that's what you did.
Yeah.
And I have had this amazing experience where, because of various life events, I have several businesses. And the one thing that's worked in each of my little businesses is I have worked with a niche. And I realized the niche who make me happy, who make me proud to work with them, and who happen to do the job I also do that I adore, are celebrants. I have this really strong philosophy about being a celebrant. When I told a very good long-term friend of mine that I was becoming a celebrant, she said, oh, you'll be amazing. You're such a brilliant public speaker. And I said, no, it's not about that. She said, well, of course it is. You're going to be delivering a big performance. And I said, no, the whole point of being a celebrant is you are not the one in the spotlight. In fact, I believe our role is to stand next to the person or people in the spotlight and be the person they need us to be. And every single celebrant I have had the privilege to meet or train or coach sees that.
Yeah.
They are real givers, real supporters, real radiators.
Love
Who
that.
wouldn't want to spend their entire day working with people like that?
Absolutely. And Dinah, you make a very good point. I think as a celebrant, you are there for that most important moment in that person's life, a very significant milestone.
Yeah.
And as you rightly say, you are there to enhance, not to be in the spotlight. You are there to focus that stage light on the correct person and to bring it together cohesively. So that's absolutely gorgeous. Now, I hear congratulations are in order. I know you've been listed as a recommended trainer for AOIC, the Association of Independent Celebrants. Tell me a little bit more about what this means, because when I saw the news, I was ecstatic for you, but I wasn't sure what I was celebrating.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend. Do you know, this honestly felt like one of those moments in my career where you'll get this, as my husband beautifully put it, darling, congratulations. It's taken 30 years and you've become an overnight success. I have worked so hard for this moment. When I got the notification, I actually took it to John and said, you have to read that out to me and make sure I haven't missed the word not. It was a real pinch me moment. Here's the thing. The AOIC is the trade association in the UK for independent celebrants. They've been, to me, integral to my growth and success as a celebrant, because they provide a safe space where all of my fellow independent celebrants kind of hang out together. We have a private Facebook page where we support each other. We have a place where we can ask really, really experienced celebrants, how can I best support a family who need me to do something I've never done before?
Yeah.
And confidentiality is always respected, not only of our clients, but of each other. So it becomes a really safe space. They also provide us with our insurance. So they're a really important organization for us. And you should always check when you're working with somebody doing this important for your life, that they have an insurance to cover them if anything goes wrong. And they also provide us with continuous professional development. So every month, included in our membership, we get the chance to spend an hour listening to and then questioning real experts from right across the spectrum, from funeral to wedding professionals. And they get us that because they're figureheads. You know, we'd never get access to these experts otherwise. And they only recommended, apart from me, 3 other people offering training. So to be only the 4th, and what I love is we are all so different. So I actually spoke to somebody this morning who's really beautifully spiritual and is actually following a druid path. And I instantly knew, I am not the person to train you. You need to speak to somebody who really specializes in this. And sure enough, they're on the AOIC webpage. I can connect you with them. And so I love that they've very cleverly found 4 options for training who are going to be the right choice for 4 totally different types of celebrant.
Absolutely, because
I'm hugely privileged to be one of them.
A very valid point you make is that that teacher or that guide in that professional path has to be a good fit. Even as a coach, I know myself, some clients are not your clients and you refer them to somebody better suited. But how wonderful that you have an organization that creates that safe space and that collaboration and has so discerningly picked the training providers to provide to their community with the variety that's needed.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, that was about the scariest month of my life. Knowing that a group of my peers who I really highly respect, people from the membership committee of the association, were each reviewing my training. And to come back and say, yes, we'd like to approve and recommend you, it kind of blew me away, to be honest.
But like you say, that moment where you realize it's only taken me so many years to get here, but here I am, the overnight success.
Yeah.
When you mentioned about John, I actually thought to myself, Raymond probably would have said, congratulations, now get back to work.
Yeah. Yeah, crack on.
So as you know, Dinah, I am seriously considering becoming a celebrant myself. And while I have you on the line, I'm going to abuse you and I'll ask you for the inside scoop. What kind of traits, skills, personality do you need to be a successful celebrant?
Oh, that's such a great question. And my friend, let me tell you, you have them in abundance.
Thank
So
you.
I often say to people, we have to have this kind of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who says business isn't personal, this is not the business for you. Because you have to have a balance between personal and interpersonal skills, but also some really serious practical ones.
Yeah.
And I would say that in equal parts, you need empathy
Mm-hmm.
and credibility.
Mm.
Now, credibility to me boils down to something really simple. You need to do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And when you do that, you build credibility. So when you're not in the room, all of those other professions who work with you are saying to that client or potential client, that's the person you need to talk to, because they do what they say, they know what they're talking about, and they care. Now, empathy, because actually, although you'd think, well, that's relevant, of course, for funeral clients, believe me, organizing a wedding is about the most stressful thing a couple will ever do. The biggest compliment I've ever had from a couple was when they said to me, we used to make excuses to speak to you while we were planning the wedding, just because we needed to think one of our providers loved us.
I love that.
And we used to talk and they'd feel better and then they'd go back feeling excited about their wedding again. So empathy, you need to be credible. You need to be extremely well organized, because I was training a celebrant this morning who's learning to become a funeral and life celebration celebrant. And I was saying to her, my process from that first phone call to the follow-up we do 3 months later with the family, there's 25 steps in that process. If you miss a single one of them out, you're letting your family down.
Yeah.
So you have to be well organized. The other thing you have to do is you have to be able to leave your ego at the door. I have never done a job that is less about me. So it is not our place as celebrants to let a family know whether or not we like their choices. It is our job to deliver them impeccably.
Yeah.
I have heard music played at memorial services, at life celebrations, that honestly, if I'd been on the dance floor, I'd have sat down. But it's not about me.
That's it.
And when I'm standing in a chapel and I watch everybody else who knew this person light up because they're now connecting with that memory, there's nothing more precious.
Yeah. And you make a very valid point about you almost facilitate the moment, that memory, that bringing everyone together. And like you say, that's actually a very precious and privileged place to be.
Big time.
Supporting a family like that.
Yeah. And everybody thinks the big thing is you have to be a good speaker. You do, but you have to be an exceptional, active listener.
Yeah.
I also say to everyone I train, from the very first day you decide you're going to be a celebrant, you are now a writer. So all this nonsense that people tell you about good days to write and bad days to write and writer's block, they're over. If I get a phone call this morning from a colleague saying I have COVID, I am meant to deliver a service for a family tomorrow and I haven't written it yet, I can't say, well, it's not a good day for me to write. So from today, because you've let me know you're considering it, from today, my friend, you are a writer. And I write for 20 minutes every day.
That's fantastic.
Because I'm a
I would,
writer.
yeah. And, I think that's bringing all those communication skills together. It is the listening, it is the speaking, it's the writing. And I do think there's an impact of the body language, being
Oh,
able
big time.
to have good body language, but also reading other people's body language. And I think
Yeah, and
especially with
there's
your
the
life
active listening,
journeys.
right?
Yes, absolutely. So, if I was based in the UK, or I don't know if it's UK specific, but what training options are available?
Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that alarmingly, it is not a legal requirement in this country to do any training to become a
Okay.
celebrant. You could take a funeral tomorrow, and in fact, there are occasions where being a family member, like I was, or a friend, you are the best person to do it.
Yeah.
So there are no legal requirements at the moment. That could well change. But the big reason to do the training is so that you're not going to let a family down,
Yeah.
and so that you're the best possible equipped you could be to deliver a service for someone. The options, I would encourage you to do something really simple. Go on to LinkedIn and find 5 celebrants. Ask them who they trained with.
Okay. Good
Go
advice.
to the AOIC website and look at the 4 people that are recommended by them and think, are any of them right for me? And the last way I would look is I would then do a Google search or a search engine search and see how often people are coming up. Because some of these training organizations have been out there a very long time.
Yeah.
They're amazingly experienced. I'm a newbie in this field, and I'm not ashamed to say it, because I'm not a newbie to training. I've been delivering training for about 30 years.
Yeah.
But make sure that the people you go to are credible. We've mentioned being credible as a celebrant. Are they credible as a trainer? Ask for a conversation. Do not sign up to a course until you've spoken to the person who's going to train you. And then it's a great fit.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, also getting recommendations from those celebrants that you approach. I think that also always stands us in good stead. In my own experience, I always say, being a former executive assistant, I would trust a referral from an executive assistant over Google any day of the week. So,
Yeah, big time.
just do your homework, a little bit of due diligence. Don't always just take things on face value. Do your research.
Yes.
So fantastic. Dinah, I know that this month your focus is all around vow renewals, and you have a beautiful premises, the Charcoal Hut, where you actually host some of these functions. Is there anything you want to share with us about the month ahead?
Do you know what? The month ahead is amazing. September is a bit of a special month for me. It's my birthday month. And John and I were born in the same year, but he's an April baby.
Okay.
And I get to take the mickey out of him until the end of August every year about how old he is. And then, of course, I'm old too. And he's been saying to me for several months, wait for it. This one's a good one. What are you talking about? He says, just something happens when you hit 55. It's empowering, and you're going to feel amazing. And it seems he's right, because for the last 2 or 3 weeks, something very gorgeous is happening. And you know what? I do think in kind of in the sensible world, although what that is nowadays, who knows? I do feel that the big decision I made about the path I was going to take with work, I think spending so much time this year working with couples who are renewing vows, and you're right, COVID has prompted so many people to say, don't ever let me take you for granted again. We have a mutual, very dear friend, Bernie, who herself is a celebrant, and who I was very privileged to do a gratitude ceremony for her and her partner, John, here. And as she beautifully put it, we want to do this because sometimes saying I love you too just isn't enough. And I've spent a
That's
lot of
stunning.
time with people doing that this year. So I'm just flying. And I'm also very excited that this month I'm preparing because I've been asked to speak at the AOIC conference in October.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So yeah, I'm preparing for that this month.
Lots of hard work ahead. You know,
Lots of
you were
practice.
talking about this, especially during the lockdowns. My husband and myself, he and I both used to travel a lot. And a friend of mine, about 6 months in, asked me, "So how's it going?" I said, "Well, I finally met him and he's quite nice. You
Yeah.
know, we've been spending some time together. He's actually quite nice." Um, so that is incredibly exciting news on the AOC conference. If somebody's tuning in and they want more information about the conference, will that be available on the AIOC's website?
AOIC.
I
Yes.
see. Okay. You see, I knew I had the acronym wrong.
If you do a search for Independent Celebrants, they will come up. And
Fantastic.
yes, there is more information, but it's only open to members.
To members. Okay. What I will do is I will, in any case, put their website into the comments if anyone's
Oh,
watching this later and wants that information. Dinah, I can't believe it's been a half an hour. It feels like 2 minutes. Thank you so much for hopping on and answering some of my questions. And we wish you every success. And I
thank you
really look
so
forward
much,
to
Anel.
seeing pictures of ceremonies and hearing about all your adventures. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anel. Bye.